So good morning, everyone. Depending on where you're located, it could be evening. For Carla, it is evening. My name is Megan Henderson, and I am from NEA BPD Australia. Just to start, I'd just like to do an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, NEA BPD acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. For those of you who may not be familiar with our organisation, NEA BPD, we aim to support families and carers of people living with a personality disorder, which can affect up to a significant amount of the population. There are many types of personality disorder, but borderline personality disorder is one of the most commonly diagnosed. It's very complex and can wreak havoc, not only for those living with it, but also for the people around them as well. NEA is a volunteer-run organisation supported by over 200 volunteers right across Australia. Our Family Connections program is currently offered in over 26 countries around the world. And our program is a 12-week evidence-based program that provides skills and hope to family members and carers. The program is offered free of charge to our participants and is led by our volunteer leaders, who are also peers, who generously give their time to support other families. We don't receive any government funding, so we rely solely on the generosity of our families and supporters. Thank you to those who have submitted questions. We'll be having a short Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you submitted a question up front, we have forwarded that already to Carla, so she has it. And yeah, if you want to just put a question in the chat, we'll try and get through as many as we can at the end. I'll also put our donation link in the chat, so if anyone would like to contribute, we're very, very appreciative. Try to keep your mic muted during the presentation, just not to, so we don't distract Carla. And as I mentioned, we are recording this webinar, so please turn off your camera if you don't want to be displayed. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Carla to everybody. Dr. Carla Sharp is a John and Rebecca Moores Professor and Associate Dean for Faculty and Research in Class. She's also Director of the Adolescent Diagnosis Assessment Prevention and Treatment Centre and the Developmental Psychopathology Lab at University of Houston. She holds adjunct positions at the University of Texas, Bayer College of Medicine, University College London, and the University of Free State in South Africa. She has a long-standing interest in social cognition, mentalising as a cause and correlate of psychiatric disorder across the lifespan with a special focus on youth. She's published over 300 peer-reviewed publications, numerous chapters and 8 books. A large proportion of her research uses borderline personality disorder and other personality pathology to study where social cognitive function goes awry. As such, she has significantly advanced scientific understanding of the phenomenology, causes and correlates of personality pathology in youth. She is the recipient of 2016 Mid-Career Award, North American Society for the Study of Personality Disorders, and the 2018 Award for Achievement in the Field of Severe Personality Disorders from the Personality Disorders Institute in New York. She is the current Associate Editor for the APA journal Personality Disorders, Theory, Research and Treatment, and a workgroup member for updating the American Psychiatric Association practice guidelines for BPD. Recent developments in her work reflect a translational focus to carry through the earlier focus on mentalising to evaluate its function as mechanism of change in personality pathology, as well as other attachment-related conditions, and an interest in the DSM-5 alternative model of personality disorder. Her work has been funded by NICHD, NIAAA, NIMH, the Brain and Behaviour Research Foundation, and other foundations. That's a lot, very interesting, very accolades. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Carla Sharp to do the presentation today.
Yes, thank you so much, Megan, and thank you everybody for being with us on your Saturday morning, my Friday night. here in North America. And I know we only have until the bottom of the next hour, so I'm going to start us off. Let me just share my sound as well so that you can hear my video. And I'm going to get to the presenter view. Oops, nope. Clicked the wrong ones. Hang on. I need to start from scratch. Let's see if that works better. And let me go to the. Do you see my presenter view? Yeah, that looks good. All right, so mentalizing what it is and how we do it. So I want to start with just a little video about theory of mind. Theory of mind is the construct that where mentalizing, the empirical basis of mentalizing originates from, and I think it's a helpful little video to begin to orient us as to what we mean with mentalizing. So I hope you can hear it. Megan, if you're not hearing it, if my sound didn't go through, just wave and I'll start I'll start again.
No problem.
Sorry, looks like I have difficulty today with getting us. Oh, you know what's happened? Somehow my when I clicked the wrong button, I duplicated my screen, and that is what we have a problem with. So I don't know that I'll have to see on which screen it will play. Let's just see if I can try and do it here. Let's try here. Nope. All right. Let me try and get, I'm so sorry because this seldom happens to me. I do this so often, but
That's all right.
something happened in trying to get the, let me end the show. All right.
It's
All
amazing how
right.
technology is so amazing, but when it lets you down, it lets you down. It's like the
Well,
slightest thing.
it's when it is a new, and yeah, when the problem is new, then all right, let me try one more time. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna go to, and then I won't click the wrong one again. Let's just see if this can work. Okay, let's just move your faces out of the way. All right. All right. All right. Let's see if you see it now and if it plays. Yep, there it goes. Very good.
We're gonna have a tea party with Play-Doh. And myself. Here, Sarah.
Well, you've probably discovered that however smart your 3-year-old is, she doesn't seem able to put herself in someone else's mental shoes, to imagine how they think and what they believe. Perhaps you thought your parenting skills were to blame, but scientists suggest that understanding other minds is a skill that may not be fully developed until a child is about 4. To learn how children's social skills evolve between about 3 and 4, researchers use something called a false belief test. What do you think's in this box? Looks fairly obvious, doesn't it? Crayons. But let me show you. I filled it full of candles. Right? Now I close it up again. While you and I have been having this conversation, Snoopy has been down here, asleep. Doesn't know what we've talked about. But let's bring him into the conversation. Now I have another question for you. What do you think Snoopy will say if I ask him what's in this box? Crayons, obviously. What else could anybody possibly say? Well, watch this 3-year-old.
What do you think is inside this box? Let's open it up and see. Candle.
Now, you can ask the child what appears to be a very simple question about that. What did you think was inside the box when you first saw it? They say, oh, I always thought that there were candles in this box. Then you can ask them about someone else. So you can ask them about Snoopy. Snoopy's been sitting here. He hasn't seen this box. He's never seen us open it up. What does Snoopy think is inside this box?
Candle.
And say the same thing. Snoopy will think there are candles inside this box. And what that indicates is that the children's view of how minds work is very, very different from the view that you and I would have. Did you see it?
In the mind of the 3-year-old, everyone sees the world much the same way. There's no difference between what I think and believe and what everyone else, including Snoopy, thinks and believes. It is, in a sense, a naive and innocent view of the world, a kind of mental Eden. And then, about 4, comes the fall from grace.
Now, if you take a 4-year-old, quite typically the 4-year-old will tell you that, as a matter of fact, he thought there were crayons in the box, and then he found out that there were candles in the box. You can ask him about Snoopy, and he'll say, oh no, Snoopy will think that there are crayons in this box. Wait, why will he think that?
Because it's a crayon box.
That's right, and that's going to make him think there are crayons. What's really in the box?
Candle.
And then you get the 5-year-olds who are just utterly blasé and think that this is such an obvious thing, it's silly even to ask the question. What that shows is that by the time children are 4 or 5, they have a view of the mind that looks much more like our view of the mind. They understand that things can be tricky and deceptive, that you can change your mind, that things aren't always the way that they seem. And that gives them a very different vision of how the mind works and how people work.
Remember, we're sharing this. Oh, I need that. And then it's my turn.
Children who pass the false belief test now understand that other people can have different beliefs, even mistaken beliefs. Some scientists suggest that this test is further evidence of innate brain circuits specialized for reading other people's minds. They call it a theory of mind mechanism.
All right. So that is really the essence of what we'll be talking about in the next sort of half hour, 45 minutes is theory of mind or mentalizing. And I hope that the video clearly illustrated to you that what we are talking about is the capacity to reflect on one's own thoughts and feelings and those of others, and to predict and understand that. So we're really talking about representations of reality. So, you know, in the 3-year-old, what's in the 3-year-old's mind is the truth. And the 3-year-old thinks that's what Snoopy has in his mind, and that's what mom and dad has in their minds, and that's what my friends have in mind. When we get to age 4, we are able to begin to have that reflective capacity where we can decouple what's in our minds from reality. And we are aware of the fact that what is in our minds is a representation of reality, and that others may not share that same representation. So this is what happens at age 4. Now, all of us sort of grow, continue to grow in theory of mind capacity, mentalizing capacity becomes more sophisticated. But this is sort of the first sort of acid test of theory of mind capacity, of mentalizing capacity, when children get to 4. And then they can begin to understand, for instance, that people can change their minds, that I can change my mind. That things are not always as they seem. Things are not always as they are. And so what is at the center of mentalizing is the idea of uncertainty and curiosity. And so all mentalizing approaches, whether we apply them in the family setting or whether we apply them in the therapy room, is really about curiosity, a curious stance, a not knowing stance, one that seeks clarification, rather than assuming that we know what goes on in the minds of others. And if you think about it carefully, this all sounds really like it makes a lot of sense. But in reality, it's very difficult for people in the heat of the moment to really take a not knowing stance, because we get into patterns of interaction with others, and it's as if we collect data on other people, and therefore we expect certain responses from other people, and we get locked into these patterns of behavior. And so when we are in a new situation with this person, we tend to revert back and take shortcuts and fall prey to these sort of existing patterns, often in some cases unhealthy patterns of behavior with other people. And so what mentalizing does is it invites us to really turn a new page and see every new interaction as a new chance to learn to do things differently. And so I hope I can give you a little bit of insight into this in the next hour or so. All right, so here is the working definition then of mentalizing. Mentalizing is a form of imaginative mental activity, perceiving and interpreting human behavior in terms of intentional mental states. So it's very important, this word imaginative, because it means that we actually have to stop for a moment and imagine what other people might be thinking. We are perceiving and interpreting human behavior, and it's not random. We are assuming that there's some meaning in people's behaviors, and that's what we mean with intentional. Now, it is an umbrella concept to describe many different types of mentalizing, and I'm just going to walk you through that very carefully. Don't be worried about this seemingly complex picture here. What I want you to just focus on are these sort of 4 dimensions: explicit and implicit dimensions, self and other, cognitive affective, and then internal and external. And so if we, for instance, think about explicit and implicit mentalizing, we can think about implicit mentalizing as things that happen off the cuff, sort of. We don't really think about it. We don't really reflect on it. It's things that are non-conscious, like empathy. It's procedural, it's non-verbal, it's non-reflective. It happens really fast, and it's usually facilitated by arousal. On the other hand, explicit and controlled mentalizing is one where we are aware of the fact that we have now pressed the pause button and we are interpreting and reflecting and taking someone's perspective. So it's conscious, it can be verbalized, it's reflective, it's slower, and it is inhibited by arousal. So when we're in this sort of explicit controlled mentalizing, then we are usually not upset. But when we are in the implicit mentalizing, we make a quick judgment on what's going on with someone else without really reflecting on it. Then we are in an implicit automatic mentalizing stance. So if we look at this example, for instance, the wife says, "My darling, did you remember to pick up my dry cleaning?" Husband says, "Oh no, I forgot. I'm sorry." And the wife feels annoyed, and she is thinking that he did not really want to do it in the first place. And she says, "Oh no, I need this black dress for tonight's work function. I wish you told me that you weren't going to pick it up, and I would have made an effort to pick it up myself." The husband says, "I just forgot. I'm so sorry. I meant to pick it up. I'm really sorry." The wife, now remembering the last time her husband forgot to pick up one of the children from soccer practice. Remember, we are going off past data, and we put it all together in our minds when these events come up. And then she says, "When I asked you, you looked like you didn't really want to do it. I could have easily swung up to pick it up if you'd been honest about it. I'd much rather you don't commit to help out if you don't think you can follow through. At least then I know I need to get it done myself." So this is pretty much an example of automatic mentalizing. It's the arousal is high, shortcuts are being taken. If we compare it, for instance, with this one, "My darling, did you remember to pick up the dry cleaning?" "Oh no, I forgot. I'm sorry." The wife, feeling annoyed, says, "Oh no, I need the black dress for tonight. But listen, can I talk to you about a broader issue this relates to?" The husband says, "Sure, what's up?" And she does remember the last time that he forgot about the soccer practice, but she says, in a more mentalizing frame of mind, she says, "I know I might be completely off base here, but when you forget to do something like pick up the dry cleaning after we agreed that you'd do it, it makes me feel that our family is not a priority for you. It might just be some insecurity on my part, but our relationship is important to me, and I want to get your perspective on this." So this is a much more controlled mentalizing response. trying to make sense of the what's been going on, and trying not to make assumptions about what was going on, but rather inviting, saying what she feels, and inviting her partner to comment on that. Now, this may make us think that controlled mentalizing is what we all want to do all of the time, and that we should avoid this sort of more automatic emotion-based mentalizing. But what about if you wake up in the middle of the night from a noise downstairs? As you tip down to the living room, you see that the window has been broken into and there's a stranger rummaging through your drawers. When the stranger turns around towards you, you notice he's carrying a knife. So this is not a time when you want to engage a burglar saying, oh, I've noticed that you're in my living room. I'm not sure what might be up with you, but I'm wondering what might be going on. I noticed that you've got a knife in you. So this is not the time for controlled mentalizing. This is the time when we do want to shoot from the hip and be in automatic mentalizing. So the point I'm trying to make is that any of the mentalizing dimensions are not in and of themselves good or bad. It really is very context specific. And part of the trick in maintaining a mentalizing stance is to be able to really slow down enough so that we can read the context and begin to be reflective and think, what do I need to do? What is the context here requiring me to do? All right, so one of our other dimensions that we think about when we think about mentalizing is cognitive and affective mentalizing. Cognitive mentalizing really comes from research in child development, where we think about meta representations. There's usually an agent, a person, and there's an informational relation that's specific to the agent's attitude. So there's a mental state word like pretending, believing, desiring, and so forth. And then there's an aspect of reality that grounds the agent's attitude and the content of an agent's attitude. So what cognitive mentalizing really is that we say something like, I believe you think that I'm being mean on purpose, as opposed to you are being mean on purpose. And so you can see the moment we add some of these the thinking language, mental state language, we really move the statement from one of certainty to uncertainty. And you'll remember right in the beginning, I said mentalizing stance is really a stance of uncertainty. And so, you know, for fun, we can look at some of these and how to change them into meta representations, into mentalizing statements. She wants to be friends with me. I think she wants to be friends with me. She would like to be friends with me. I wonder if she would like to be friends with me. We could be good friends. I believe we could be good friends. He was going to call me last night. I thought he was going to call me last night. We had it all figured out last time we talked. I was under the impression that we had it figured out last time we talked. She's upset. Oops, I left out that one, sorry. She seems to be upset. So really important that if we do want to be in a mentalizing stance, that we start to incorporate mental state language, thinking language, the language of the mind into our statements. And by doing that, you are really inviting the other person. I wonder if she would like to be friends with me. You're inviting that person into a conversation. Well, would you like to be friends with me? It's not a statement. She would like to be friends with me, because what statements tend to do is, you know, create a dichotomy. He was going to call me last night. He didn't call me last night, rather than I thought, and what went wrong. It sort of opens up a conversation when you add mental state language. What about affective mentalizing? And I want to show you this little video because it shows it so nicely what the power is of the non-verbal, automatic things that we do in our relationships. And we're usually not aware of them until we actually videotape ourselves. So in mentalization-based therapy, we do a lot of video feedback to help us with that. But this is a nice video to illustrate this.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age. And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions. They turn away. They feel the stress of it. They lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing. It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
All right. So that gives you a sense of affective mentalizing. It's the things that we do that are based in emotion. That's pre-verbal. In that, we often don't even use language. It's turn taking, synchrony, general sort of empathy, validation with our body language and our facial expressions. And so, both cognitive and affective mentalizing help us understand and communicate. So it's being present in the room, connecting, smiling, touching, synchrony, turn taking, sharing of joy, mutual attention, engagement, containment, eye contact, physical closeness, touch, empathy, and validation. And it's often unconscious and implicit, but through treatment, we can make that more conscious in individuals. Next, we can think about mentalizing versus self or others. So in this case that we went through, the wife was really just mentalizing herself. She didn't at that moment have the wherewithal to sort of pause and think what could have been going on for her husband. Just asking him, hey, how come you forgot? Instead of jumping to the conclusions and putting it into the same data file of all of the times that he's let her down, so that didn't help her move forward, as opposed to the other one where she's a little bit more open to saying, hey, what's going on with you? Because this is where I'm coming from, but I want to check in with you to see where you are coming from in these kind of situations. And then finally, with external and internal features, I think it was very clear how the still face, what an impact some of the external features of the face can have on someone else. So in this case, the baby is sort of responding to those sort of external features. The baby at this stage does not have the capacity to rely on the internal features of what could be going on in mom's mind, because we know from research that we need actually quite a lot of prefrontal cortex in order to mentalize. And this is why we see the false belief task only being passed at age 4. And second order theory of mind, more sophisticated mentalizing, really only develops later in childhood and even into adolescence and young adulthood. But here are our 4 types of mentalizing. And what we're doing in MBT is we are always trying to find a balance between this. If we are overly relying on self-mentalizing, we want to try and invite our patient to engage in other mentalizing. If we see the client is very much in a reflective, cognitive, mentalizing stance, then we try and connect it a bit more with affect. If we see the person is, very automatic, we try and slow that down and get more reflective mentalizing going. So it's a sort of dance the whole time, trying to move within all of these polarities. Now, what guides us when whether we're going to mentalize or not? First of all, our capacity. We know that people vary in terms of their biologically endowed capacity to mentalize. We also know that there are biologically based conditions like autism that makes it harder for people to mentalize. There's also a learned component of mentalization. So where we learn about mentalization is really in our early environment. That could include the caregiving environment, but beyond that as well. If I'm going to preschool, if I'm going to school, even society could be a laboratory for where I learn to mentalize. If I live in a society where it's a sort of dog eat dog, survival of the fittest type of culture, there's going to be lower levels of mentalization. If I live in a society where people do pause a little bit to take other people's perspective, we're going to see better mentalizing capacity at a mean level. Also, our goals and values. So if I do want to have a good relationship with my husband, I will try to slow down at times and mentalize him. If I don't want to have a good relationship, I can just go in and take shortcuts, and I don't need to really try and mentalize. So really, what we value and what we choose to have in our lives also determines whether we're going to mentalize or not. So why is it important for families? I think it's probably speaking for itself already. But importantly, it scaffolds personality development. So we know from research that the more mentalization takes place in the family, the more a child practices reflective capacity. When the child is able to practice reflective capacity, it's like a muscle, a mentalizing muscle. They develop muscle memory for pausing and reflecting, taking other people's perspectives, and also learning to express themselves, have a coherent sense of self, being able to say what they need in a way that does not hurt the relationship. So I have this lovely clip from Inside Out that I think illustrates mentalizing quite nicely. Let's see if this works.
I don't seem to have any sound. I'm not sure if anyone else does.
Stop!
You don't have sound?
It just came now, so yes.
Okay, you've got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. We will. Her teacher hasn't even seen Riley all day. What was she wearing last night? Remember what? Riley, oh, I'm worried sick. Where have you been? It's so late. know you don't want me to, but I miss home. It's Minnesota. You need to be happy, but I want my own and hockey team. I want to go home. Please don't be mad. Oh, sweetie. Yard where you used to play.
All right. So what it shows really is, and it's actually Riley who's able to mentalize herself adequately for the first time. She's able to access her own negative emotions and thoughts about the move. And then she's able to communicate that to her parents. And her parents are able to validate that. And up until that point in the movie, if you remember the movie, they were sort of just understandably focused on their own stress, their own jobs, their own adjustment. But in this moment, Riley's able to mentalize herself. She's able to share with her parents these negative emotions. And it is, interestingly enough, the negative emotions that she can share that are then mirrored and validated, and she's able to then make sense of that, and the new memories begin to form again. You'll remember those balls are all the memories that form, and then the structure of our personhood, the structure of the personality that then builds. And we see that crumble for Riley in the film, but then slowly she begins to build those structures again. And so what we really see in mentalizing interactions is really a slowing down of the interaction. Which is, you know, as a mom of a 17 and a 10-year-old, I fully know how hard that is in daily life to slow down. But we are really thinking about interactions as a serve and a return, and that we want to have a rally with people. Even in psychotherapy, we want to have a rally. We don't want to hit the ball too hard so that nobody can hit it back. We don't want to hit it so that it's off the court. When we hit it back, we want to hit it back so that our partner can hit it back to us. So we want to keep that rally going. And this is what we call the serve and return. And so when we think in mentalization-based terms, we also think that the sky is the limit. Coming back to this idea that we really try to turn the page and say, I'm going to take every new interaction as if I have no data on my interaction partner. I'm not going to make assumptions, and I'm going to think to myself, okay, instead of jumping to conclusions here, how can I inquire about what's going on with the other person, and see if we can, if perhaps I'm wrong this time in my assumptions. So when we're in a mentalizing stance, we highlight our own interest in mental states underpinning behavior. We qualify our own understanding and inferences. We show respect for the opaqueness of mental states. We show how such information can help the client or our interactional partner to make sense of his or her subjective experience. So we're really not interested in the content of things, but rather in this idea that we are freeing ourselves from the reality and thinking more representational about the world, that there's that that what is in our minds are not necessarily the truth. We do this in psychotherapy with this mentalizing loop. We get the narrative of the event, the experience at the time, we reflect on the events, current feeling about the events, experience talking about it in therapy, and then that generates an alternative perspective. Another way of thinking about it is like this: we notice a name, we check, we mentalize the moment, we check, we generalize and consider change. So we do this process in therapy, but equally when we work with parents, we are teaching parents to really slow down using these steps. And I'm going to teach you a little shorthand shortly for it. But to help us think about that shorthand, I want to present this little vignette. A mother arriving tired at home after a full day of work finds her 8-year-old daughter has not completed her homework as previously agreed upon. The mother puts down her bag, she sighs, and she looks at her daughter who's sitting in front of the television watching a favorite show. "What?" says her daughter. Mom responds by saying, "You know what?" The daughter seems baffled, right? Because the daughter cannot read mom's mind. She's busy watching TV, so her mind is somewhere else. Mom sighs again and reminds her daughter in a somewhat exasperated tone that they agreed at school drop-off that the 8-year-old would complete her homework at after-school care. So the daughter really didn't remember it. She's 8. She's got little free prefrontal cortex, and she's got other things in her little life that's going on for her. So she explained that she forgot, and Mom says, "Well, that's not good enough. Go sit down now and go do your homework while I start dinner. No buts. Now go sit down." So we do understand Mom's perspective too, right? So she is in a different place. She's tired from work. She thought the homework would be done, and now her visions of her watching some TV and having some downtime are gone. So we understand that. But the servant return with her daughter is not leading to the outcome that she wants. The daughter becomes distressed and says that she wants to finish her show. Mom becomes more exasperated and says, "I don't want to be saddled with your homework after dinner. Do it now, or no more television for you for the rest of the week." So we understand both perspectives here. And the question then becomes, is there a way to interact so that mom can put up her feet later? Because now the daughter is crying, she's running off to her room, dinner is out the window, homework is out the window, and relaxation is out of the window. So here then are these sort of what I call my cheat sheet, or I call it my helping hand, because I can write each of these 5 things onto each of my fingers. I was in Denmark last week teaching this, and actually one of our participants went and wrote it on his hand, each of these. So when we are in a situation, in interaction, the first thing we want to do is focus down. We want to focus down, get shared attention on what we're talking about. Then we want to request meaning, or we want to give meaning to the situation. Then, if appropriate, we want to expand. We want to reward the other person that's with us. And then we want to think about a plan. So I'll play this out for you again. Mom arrives, she finds her daughter in front of the TV watching the show. She quietly sits down next to her daughter. She takes the remote control and she says, "Sarah, can I pause your show for a moment? I have something important to talk to you about." So she's focusing in on the situation, not trying to talk over the TV, not trying to talk while eyes are not on me, but really trying to focus down the situation. The daughter says yes, and she turns to her mom. Her mom, making eye contact, says, "I can see you are busy watching your favorite show, giving meaning to the moment, but I realize that your homework's still not done, and we'll need to have time to go over it together. What about we look at it together to see what still needs to be done, and then we decide how we fit it in around dinner." The daughter agrees because the TV is not completely off and she can open the homework and look at it. And then mom is rewarding her. Ah, look at this. Your teacher has asked you to do more exercises in fractions. What do you think about that? The daughter says she wants to be excited and show her mom how it works. Will you show me how you do it? By now, Sarah is somewhat excited about showing her mom the fractions, and she begins to work on her homework. After the first problem, her mom says, excellent work. She rewards her. I like how you think through the problem and then write down your answer. Sarah smiles, starts on the next problem. And then mom says, it's close to dinner time. Do you want to continue or after dinner? And Sarah agrees to do it now. So changing this into a mentalizing, gets us to dinner, gets us to get the homework done, and importantly, keeps our relationship close. Now, research is showing us that when we do this serve and return, serve and return, serve and return, we know this from child development in small children. This is why when you read about child development and brain development, the serve and return is the most single important predictor of how connected the brain becomes and how well the brain functions. It turns out in psychotherapy, it's exactly the same thing. So if we do the serve and return and the serve and return and the serve and return, experiencing care, calm voice, supporting words, hearing calm voice, understanding language, feeling validated, we develop that same muscle memory. So coming back to that idea that the sky's the limit, we can start today. We can change the brain. Even if the brain didn't learn this early on, we can change the brain today to develop this muscle memory for mentalizing. There's been some cool studies that have shown this also in borderline patients, where borderline patients' brains start to look like healthy controlled brains in terms of these areas of mentalization because they learn the serve and return. And so really what we're learning is brain plasticity, but in order to learn it, we have to use our brain in mentalization. So, when I'm teaching my students MBT, I tell them begin to mentalize everybody around you because it's the same muscle, mentalizing muscle that you'll be using, that you'll be doing in your psychotherapy, the serve and return with your client. The client in turn needs to learn the serve and return with other people, because in personality disorder, the serve and return has stopped working. And so we're less concerned with understanding how it stopped working or why it stopped working, because we can analyze that for years. What we're interested in is to begin to change the serve and return starting today. So that's the value component of it. Let's start today and let's choose to do it differently. All right, so really thinking about mentalization as opportunity ahead. Many of the ideas that I talk about is in our book that was written for mentalizing in psychotherapy of all sorts, and also mentalizing in our relationships, our caregiving relationships, and so on. So I think that's it from me, and we have some time for questions. I know that I'll try to stop share here, and then I can start with the questions, Megan, that was handed over to us. There was one that asked about different formats and program for MBT. So, in that book that I showed you, I do talk about different formats and programs for MBT, but the classic one, is a sort of outpatient treatment setting with for adults, weekly therapy and then group therapy, but there are inpatient versions of this. And then in MBTA, the one that I do a lot of because I'm interested in young people, the format is 3 individual sessions per week, per month, and then the 4th one is a family session. There's also group therapy for teenagers. MBT, it doesn't seem to work so well. It works better in adults. So yes, lots of different formats have been developed. There's quite a few books out there. There's a recent book by Fonagy and colleagues with Cambridge University Press that really discusses all of the different various formats of MBT, but I think there's been a lot of adaptation on that now. Someone asked how to hold boundaries with a person, an ex-partner with BPD, if you know retaliation is a likely consequence. And so, you know, from an MBT standpoint, we would try to think about whether we are certain that retaliation would be a likely consequence, and therefore approach the interaction or approach the person almost expecting that retaliation wouldn't be the likely consequence, and really have an open mind and thereby potentially change the serve and return. Because we can't control other people's behavior, I have tried many times to do that with my children or my husband, but we cannot control other people's behavior, but we can control our own behavior. So I do think from an MBT standpoint, we approach a question like that. Okay, if I am worried that there might be retaliation, I'm going to change my own behavior and I won't go into the situation expecting retaliation, and then perhaps I unlock something that could prevent retaliation. There was another question about how to support an autistic person with BPD and narcissism to make use of mentalisation. And that's a complex question because we've got manuals for MBT with narcissism and BPD, of course, but very little work has systematically integrated it for people with autism. And so the thing that I'll be thinking about, and I don't have an answer for you today, but typically we think about autism as more of a real deficit in mentalizing. While in personality disorder, there isn't a deficit. People with personality disorder are very good mentalizers. The problem is that when they are in a situation where their arousal gets high, it shuts down their mentalizing. But they can get their mentalizing back on track. But for their mentalizing to come back on track, they do need to get the arousal down. And that's why we always say, let's just slow down. Let's just take a moment. Let's just breathe. Let's just get back to thinking, because we're not thinking right now. So we get the arousal down and then there's no deficit. So I imagine with someone that has a biologically based deficit, like an autistic person, we're going to, bringing the arousal down alone is not going to work. And we're going to have to dip into some of the strategies that, say, Simon Baron-Cohen would have developed for autistic individuals to increase their theory of mind, which is very concrete ways of, making use of faces to understand feelings, real concrete ways of dealing with a theory of mind component of it, and then combining it with the personality disorder. But I think that's uncharted territory. So I'm sort of just thinking out loud, but thank you for the question, because I think that's a really interesting question. And then finally, someone said that they heard me talk before about antagonism in BPD. And if I understand the question correctly, the question is, how is antagonism generated in BPD? And so antagonism comes up for BPD when we are trying to describe BPD in trait-like terms. And we just know from research that when individuals with BPD complete personality trait questionnaires, they usually score high on antagonism. And with antagonism, we just mean that the person actually is not willing to play ball. They will not engage in a serve and return. And so, again, if we want to engage a person, that means they're not mentalizing. If we want to engage another person who's currently not mentalizing, your best bet is to take a not knowing stance yourself. So just to say, hang on, I'm getting lost. I've lost you here. Can we just slow down for a moment, because I'm not following what's happened just now? Can we rewind to this point? You said that you wanted me to be home, by 6 o'clock. And from there on, I lost what's happened. But it has to be an honest, not knowing stance. If you are pretending, to have a not knowing stance, it won't land. You have to really look into your own mind and say, do I understand what went on here? Before I make assumptions, let me ask the person. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, we are trying to dial down the arousal in the interaction. And we do that by saying, let's just slow down for a moment and see if we can come to a common understanding of what just happened. I don't know, but I want to have an open mind about what happened. So those are our questions that we got from the audience ahead of time.
Yep.
Are there other questions or follow-ups on those if they did come from anybody in the audience today?
We do have a question from Tony. So he's just asking, I'll put it this way, so for a young person or a person with personality disorder, he's looking at DBT course versus a mentalisation course. So could you maybe discuss the differences, and is one more effective for a type of condition versus another?
The other one. And are we talking about young people, or are we talking about what's the age range?
Tony, do you want to tell us the age range?
I suppose I'm thinking adult now because my daughter's an adult. But
Adult.
it's
Adult.
part of what we talk about in family connections and the main two different treatments.
Okay.
And it's often stated that DBT only works for some people and it doesn't work for others. And I wonder if that's dependent on the condition that the person might have.
I don't think we definitely don't have any data on, the ideal study would be that we do DBT with a group of people, and then the people for whom it didn't work, we then do MBT, and then we see, does it really work? But there's no studies that have done that. So what I'm going to say just comes from my clinical impressions. I do think there are individuals that, let me put it this way. I think DBT is a very skills-based type of intervention. And some people can do well with the skills-based interventions up to a point. But beyond that point, they want something that is more relational, that helps them feel understood. Because if we think about what happens in DBT, now I would also say, when I watch Marsha Linehan do DBT, she looks exactly like Anthony Bateman doing MBT. So all good psychotherapy is in a mentalizing stance. However, what I think happens to some DBT therapy is that it becomes a little bit less focused on the individual and more focused on learning the skills. And if that is happening, the DBT is not going to land. The skills won't land. And you want to get to a DBT therapist that works a little bit more with a serve and return, that works a little bit more with self and interpersonal functioning rather than just targeting emotion dysregulation. So when I've seen DBT not work, it's when there's an overfocus on emotion dysregulation at the expense of the serve and return, the self and interpersonal interaction of the individual. So in that case, you want to get to a different DBT therapist, or you want to, shift to a mentalization-based therapy. What's great about mentalization-based therapy, and I work a lot with young people, it is a very, it's a therapy where the therapist is not the expert, as opposed to the skills-based therapies where the therapist is an expert and teaching someone something that they don't know. And for some reason, this equal playing field between a therapist and a client works really well with a lot of borderline patients. It engenders more trust when they have this sort of equal, I'm not you the expert on your life, and I'm here to learn from you, rather than I know what you've been doing wrong. and you're not good at regulating your emotion, and I'm going to teach you to regulate your emotion. That's a caricature of DBT. Please don't think that I think that's what DBT is. I know what good DBT looks like, and that is not it. But I do think because it's skills-based, it can easily fall into that if you're not careful with DBT. So that's my answer to that, Tony. I don't know if that helps you, but I don't think there is any objective information. It's going to be case by case, and you're going to have to feel it out with a particular client or patient or family member.
Thanks, Carla. That's very helpful. Yeah.
We just have one more question, and if no one has any more questions, we'll make this the last question. Someone's asking about when their partner is questioned about something, they kind of go directly into a defensive mode and start lying. And it's become a compulsive habit where they just automatically defer to lying because obviously they're in that state. So the question is really, what are some approaches or phrases or actions, or how can we avoid that shutdown and support them to feel comfortable to be honest?
That's a tough one. And, you know, for MBT, I wish we had the time to really, because for MBT, we want to stay in the here and now. And I would like to have the details, you know, I wish I had the details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up the details and see if, you know, it approximates something. But let's say the issue is that the partner, for some reason, feels that they cannot say the truth about perhaps where they were. So the person goes to work, but then instead goes to the coffee shop and sits in the coffee shop, and I am asking my partner, oh, you know, how was work today? He says, you know, it was good. And then I say, well, you know, I actually went by the coffee shop and saw you through the window. And the partner says, no, that was not me. You know, so potentially we're working with something like that, and the person is starting to sort of lie about that. You know, I don't think we'll have to go back and sort of say to the partner, hey, there's something important that I want to discuss with you. So let's give what we call an ostensive cue that I'm not now going to do what I usually do, which is, how was work? The person lies, and then I catch them out on a lie, and I say, yeah, but instead I'm going to say, listen, I want to talk to you about something important. Can we talk about something important? Come sit with me at the kitchen table. So we focus down, and then I'm going to say, you know, I need your help with something because I was in town today. I walked past the coffee shop. I saw you in the coffee shop, and I didn't know what to make of it. So that is different from how I went in at the beginning, you know, catching the person out on the lie. I just say I don't know what to make of it. And now the person can say, I would hope that the person at that point would be able to say, yes, I was in the coffee shop. I quickly stepped out of my office in order to go and get a coffee. If it doesn't work out that way, we have to go back to the drawing board and look again at the here and now and what the situation is. But I hope it illustrated to you a little bit how we come to an event. So I'm owning it by saying, listen, there's something important. I walked past a coffee shop. I didn't know what to make of it. I'm not going to make any assumptions here. And then take them at face value and let it go. And over time, what I think will happen is what we call in MBT, epistemic trust will open. The person will feel like, I don't want to lie to this person anymore because they didn't come at me trying to catch me out. So I hope that helps you a little bit with a slight different approach to that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. If we don't have any more questions, we're going to let Professor Sharp go for the evening. Thank you so much for the webinar today. I think, you know, you've really helped us explain mentalisation in such a real and human way. So thank you. Yeah, I think most of us here know how hard it is to remain calm and curious under pressure. So I think we really appreciate the tips and yeah,
I'll,
frameworks
I'll,
to go for.
I'll leave you with one idea. If you can shoot for 6 out of 10, the
Right.
research shows you do not have to do this 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So if that's a bit of encouragement, you just don't want to be a 2 out of 10. But if you
Yeah.
can get to 6 out of 10, you've done well. So thank you very much, Megan. And
Yes,
yeah, sorry about our technical issues right at the beginning.
that's all right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone else for joining. And yeah, have a great day.
Wonderful. Good night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.